the Chili Heads, which is what everyone's told. Open 24/6, closed on Sunday. Otherwise, open here in the state of Ohio in Cincinnati. Come on out if you want to the camp, which is what they call it as well. I'm here with Tom and Zane, and we're just chatting with them about what's going on in Cincinnati and around the country. Tom, how you doing this morning?
Doing well.
Excellent. And Zane, you broke your arm, but you're going to be back on the baseball field soon. And how did you break your arm?
By a bike crash.
A bike crash, guys. This is not video games. We're out biking. He went over his handlebars. He's got a broken right arm, but he's going to get it off in a week, and he's pretty happy about that. Tom, let's get to politics a little bit. Okay. Joe Biden's going to have his first press conference today.
Yes.
What do you make of how he's done so far, and what do you expect to hear at the press conference?
Well, I'm not real happy at all. I mean, I want the border to be secure. I don't like the idea he hasn't been around for 2 months. I mean, we could just go on.
Do you expect he will be asked tough questions by the press pool?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
I don't even know if he could answer them right now at this point in his life.
With Kamala Harris being put in charge of the border, does that inspire confidence? What's your reaction to her effectively being the border czar for the administration?
Personally, I do not think she will be effective. I wish they would just secure the border and change the laws instead of just allowing people just to come across. I mean, we are a country of laws. I mean, you can't pick and choose your laws. You got to sit there and say this is the law and that's how it is, regardless of what it is, what the issue is.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Tom, Zane, get well, all right? Yeah. All right, good to see you. We're going to move over to Anthony here as well. Anthony and I have been chatting all morning long. Anthony, how are you? Do you mind if I sit right here?
Go ahead.
All right, cool. Anthony, it is his 60th birthday today. How does it feel to be 60?
Mixed emotions, actually. I'm still trying to deal with it here. I don't know. It's just mixed emotions. I'm blessed to be able to see another year. Wake up this morning, but as far as a 60-year-old man, I don't feel it. I guess I don't look it if there's a certain way you're supposed to.
He doesn't look it at all. Come on, you know it. We don't have that much time, as I warned you, Anthony, but we've been chatting. Your take right now on the state of the country on Joe Biden so far, about 60 days in.
It's very confusing. It's way too many things that are just up in the air. Mm-hmm. And it's just too many question marks. Gun control, the border, the stimulus package, just way too many question marks. If someone would have asked me 30 years ago that we would be facing some of the problems we're facing today, I would have bet you any money. There's no way, and I'm not a gambling man. As well as the pandemic is going on. It's just way too many questions.
Well, hopefully we get some of those questions answered today at the press conference. We shall see. We got to leave it right there. Anthony, stay with us today all morning. It's been a pleasure talking to him. 60 years young, he doesn't look 1 minute of it, and you know it. Back to you guys in New York.
Well, Pete, you have got to buy him breakfast, and you've got to lead everybody there in happy birthday to Anthony on his 60th birthday.
Absolutely.
We shall do that.
Yeah. Happy birthday to Anthony. And I want Zane to get well, but I will have to tell you, Pete, I take a little bit of solace in the fact there are still kids out there going over the front of their handlebars.
Right?
And as you said,
that
not
is exactly
in their
how
home.
I felt.
That's right. Not in their home playing video games. All right, thanks, Pete. We'll be checking in with you throughout the morning. One of the nation's largest teachers unions is now fighting the CDC's new distancing guidelines. So what happened to following the science and getting kids back in school? Our next guest has been fighting to open schools, is pushing back. In a letter to the CDC, the American Federation of Teachers president wrote, quote, "We are not convinced that the evidence supports changing physical distancing requirements at this time." Our next guest has been fighting to open schools in her home state of Virginia. Founder of Open Fairfax County Public Schools and mom of 3, Christy Hudson, is here to react. Good morning, Christy. So the CDC has said it's no longer necessary for children to be spaced 6 feet apart. 3 feet will be safe enough. Now, the teachers union, at least the American Federation of Teachers, says, we don't believe that science. What's your reaction?
It feels like there's no amount of science, vaccinations, or even extra stimulus funds that will be enough for the teachers associations to support returning to school. The goalposts for what is considered a safe return just keep moving.
Yeah, you're right, Christy. We could put up the bullet points. The goalposts, they have shifted over and over. They've shifted physical distancing requirements, vaccination requirements, ventilation, school infrastructure. Every step of the way, it's some impossible level of hurdles that must be crossed in order to get our kids back in school. So what's the inevitable conclusion in your mind when the unions put up more and more hurdles?
I don't know, and that's kind of the million-dollar question. What is the end game here? Are we never going back to school? I mean, we just keep punting the ball, and at some point, you would think that the teachers' associations would recognize that the harm that we're doing to children by keeping them out of schools is far worse than the threat of any virus, and we have the science now that tells us that.
Exactly. We've heard more and more. You're the mother of three. Not only do you run this organization, but you're the mother of three. So we've tallied some of that cost. We've seen the other side of that ledger to some extent. But as recently as last week or earlier this week, we saw new studies about the rise in obesity in this country. And I'm sure children are part of some of that statistical rise. So what are you seeing among children in not being able to get back to school, the cost on that side of the ledger?
You know, it's heartbreaking. I hear stories every single day. We have teens that, you know, are self-harming. We have a rise in eating disorders. We have depressed kids. We have lonely children. And it's heartbreaking to watch. I mean, these children have been out of school here in my county for more than a year. And it's just pointless. I mean, we need to get them back in the classroom. That's where they are best served, and that's where they need to be.
There's a pretty simple lesson in all of this. It's one that one of my friends said to me. He said, kids need to be around kids. And my seventh grader has made that very clear after over a year of remote learning, which, by the way, in our circumstance, is good remote learning. Not everyone's is, but that doesn't matter because kids need to be around kids. The costs are racking up. All right, Christy, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
All right, Senate leaders Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell are sparring over the Democrat-backed election reform bill. We'll bring
President essentially deputized his vice president to be the border boss.
She's about the worst possible choice.
She's an open borders advocate. She wants to abolish ICE. She compared immigration officers to the KKK, and you want to put her in charge.
How a contentious clash about the Democrats' voting overhaul bill.
Shame, shame, shame.
Turning the FEC into a partisan prosecutor, that's what you ought to be ashamed of.
Not a single Republican will support it. They view this as an assault on states' rights.
The Boulder mass shooting suspect will make his first court appearance.
Today will basically be a chance for him to hear the pending charges and have his rights heard.
A stunning new report claims New York Governor Andrew Cuomo ordered officials to give his family priority for COVID testing.
If these allegations are true, it's just another hit against the governor's office.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, when I'm talking to the TV camera, I'm not going to wear a mask, and all of us have been immunized. So,
It'll make us feel better.
You're welcome to step away if you like.
beautiful shot of Tampa, Florida on this Thursday morning edition of Fox and Friends. Good morning. Will Kane, Steve Ducey, Rachel Campos, Duffy. We're glad to have you with us this morning, and we're also glad to go directly not to Tampa, Florida, but to Cincinnati, Ohio. It's Camp Washington Chili, where our friend Pete Hegseth, we think, is having chili for breakfast.
Of course, we're having chili for breakfast, which you can have for breakfast here in Cincinnati. I'm here with my fellow chili heads. In fact, so we're at Camp Washington in Chile. Come on out, or in Chile, in Cincinnati. Come out and have breakfast with us. We're talking politics. I was just talking to Joan. By the way, this is the what is it? 5 ways. 5-way. She says that maybe some of the secret ingredients are chocolate and cinnamon. Maybe. I can't confirm that. It's a secret recipe here at Camp Washington and Cincinnati Chili. And then, Will, to you, Sam here just wanted to ask you a question. You wanted to know when the University of Texas is going to get a viable basketball team.
That's really nice, Sam.
There's some
really nice. Good morning
words.
to you too, Sam.
I did say it.
Will says good morning to you too. Really nice. So they know your affinity for Texas, and they don't feel bad that they're out of the tournament.
Hey, Pete, can you get the chili with eggs on them?
Oh, sure.
That sounds good, actually.
Can you get chili with eggs on it?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Joan says yes. I mean, you can get anything with chili and eggs. That's called a 7-way, she says. I didn't see it on the menu, but there must be a secret menu.
Let me just say, a morning with
and you can get fried egg on top.
Chili, chocolate, spaghetti, and cinnamon together sounds like you had a good night the night before that morning. That's what it sounds like to me.
Hangover breakfast. All right.
Anytime a recipe's got a secret ingredient, you know it's going to be great. All right, Pete's going to be checking in with the diners to figure out what they would like to hear the president say at his press conference at 1 o'clock this afternoon. In the meantime, our top story, the border, as the Biden administration finally lets a camera inside what they're referring to as an aspirational facility holding kids in Texas. David Spunt joins us live from Washington as we learn how many unaccompanied minors are currently in custody. And David, it's a jaw-dropping number of kids, but we finally got to see inside one of the facilities, but of course they only put us inside their best facility.
Yeah, we did, and media organizations from all across the spectrum are asking to see more facilities. Those numbers continue to grow of those unaccompanied children, even families coming across the border. Yesterday, President Biden put in charge his vice president, VP Kamala Harris, to take control of what's going on at the border. I want to show you these new numbers, though, Steve, you mentioned. We're talking 16,513 unaccompanied children in the custody of Health and Human Services and Border Protection. Also, within the last year, we know that there have been 2,897 lab-confirmed COVID-19 cases among unaccompanied children. 319 of those unaccompanied children tested positive for COVID-19, and they remain in medical isolation. None, though, this is the good news, none required hospitalization for COVID-19. For the first time, as Steve mentioned, an independent news organization was allowed in one of these processing facilities to show the American public what they look like. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked about this yesterday, about the facility photographed in Carrizo Springs, Texas. She says the goal is to open up more to media when possible. Listen.
What about access to the facilities where there is overcrowding and there is an actual problem?
We're also open to providing access there, and this is just the first step in a process. These facilities, of course, can't become forums for media access all day long.
And, of course, we've been talking about it 1:15 today. That's the big press conference, President Biden's first press conference since becoming commander-in-chief, and you can bet the border will come up multiple times, especially these facilities. Back to you.
All right, David, thank you very much for the live report from D.C.
Thank you, David. You know, it's pretty stunning. A couple of days ago, we had Representative Henry Cuellar on the program. He was talking about the congressional delegations that have got to see some of these migrant facilities. And we speculated at that time, what kind of facilities would even a congressional delegation get access to? You would think just the best of them. Now, it is an honest, if not brazen admission that you are only seeing the best of these facilities. They have named them. These are our aspirational facilities, as just heard from David Spunt.
And that one you're looking at right there, that is the one in Donna, Texas, that was a couple of years ago referred to as where they keep the kids in the cages. And you can actually see the chain link fence in the background as well as part of, in some of the live, the videotape images that we have seen. This is the fancy one. This is essentially the one, the Chamber of Commerce version, where it's like, look at how we're doing things. But you know what's interesting about this? They talk a little bit about how we have talked about how this is coming at a bad time because not only is there a gigantic surge, but it's during a coronavirus pandemic. And something like there have been close to 3,000 confirmed cases with the children so far, 3,000 that we know of. Keep in mind, they have not in the past checked everybody coming in. And currently they have 320 isolated, which suggests that in addition to all the other problems, this is a super spreader event. And they're just trying to get these kids, you know, back to normal so they can release them into the country.
Well, that's right. And I think a sign that the Biden administration is finally admitting they have a crisis on their hands is that Joe Biden, President Biden, has now put Vice President Harris in charge of all this and saying she is going to speak for him. Take a look.
I said when we became a team and got elected that the Vice President was going to be the last person in the room. She didn't realize that means she gets every assignment. I think the best thing to do is to put someone who, when he or she speaks, they don't have to wonder about, is that where the president is? When she speaks for me, doesn't have to check with me. She knows what she's doing.
I hardly know what he said with that mask, but here is at least what Kamala Harris has said in the past about the border and the crisis with the children. Here's a little flashback.
I would not make it a crime punishable by jail. It should be a civil enforcement issue, but not a criminal enforcement issue.
Are you aware of the perception of many about how the power and the discretion at ICE is being used to enforce the laws? And do you see any parallels? Are you aware that there's a perception?
I see no.
Are you aware that there's a perception
that puts ICE in the same category as the KKK?
Wow. Same category as the KKK. And that is why Tom Homan says that Harris is the worst choice to lead border security. Here he was just earlier on Fox and Friends.
When President Biden says she's most qualified, I mean, seriously? I mean, what color's the sky in his world? Because you couldn't get a worse pick. Look, she supports sanctuary cities. She wrote legislation to reward those who illegally enter the United States. She vilified the men and women of the Border Patrol during last year, saying they're mistreating immigrants. She's an open borders advocate. She wants to abolish ICE. She compared immigration officers to the KKK during a Senate hearing. And you want to put her in charge of immigration enforcement on the border? I couldn't think of a worse choice.
It truly is stunning. You have to judge someone based upon their past actions and their past promises and their past words. Kamala Harris's past words and actions when it comes to immigration suggest that she is for open borders and sees immigration enforcement as I don't know what. I don't know what your conclusion is if you're comparing it to the KKK.
There is no enforcement.
Yeah. Right. Well, there is none. And in fact, she says right now that her goal is to move these unaccompanied minors who've come here illegally from the custody of the Border Patrol into the custody of HHS, which means they're going to, by the way, put them into several military bases, Joint Base San Antonio and Lackland, Fort Bliss and El Paso. All have said that they've received requests to put them into dormitories on the bases. By the way, if we have room on bases to house people, why not house our homeless veterans and provide them with some services they need? In addition, we know that there are foster care people in California, people who are taking care of foster children in California who've been receiving phone calls from the federal government saying, can you receive more children? Can you take care of more children? And this was a story in the Daily Mail, Steve, we've been talking about this earlier, that basically the government is saying that they're going to bring these children from the border and put them into an already overstrained social services foster care program.
They're asking everyday Americans who are foster parents, can you take 26 kids? It's like, because we're kind of jammed up here. It is such a disaster on the southern border. First of all, progress today, the Washington Post did, I read in a news story talking about the press conference tonight, referred to it as a crisis on our southern border in print. I had to take a picture of it myself. But a Democratic congressman from down in Texas, whose district touches the border, a fellow by the name of Philemon Vila, has asked the White House to reconsider their decision to allow every unaccompanied child into the United States. You know, they are turning some people around. But the policy is, if you're a kid, we're going to let you in. But because of COVID and the overcrowding, this congressperson is saying, you know what? Let's just tap the brakes until after the coronavirus pandemic, whenever that's going to be.
I have friends that live on the border who said that they wish that Biden would have put Representative Henry Cuellar in charge of this border problem, because he knows what's going on. So do, Doug Ducey. So do all kinds of border, people who live on the border and are leading those communities. They're really concerned about what's happening, and they don't trust Kamala Harris to do it.
No, Kamala Harris is in charge. Take some solace and hope in that fact.
She's the border boss.
That's right. All right, let's go to Jillian, who's upstairs with some more headlines for us this morning.
Good morning. That's right. And let's begin here. Overnight, an unlawful assembly being declared in Los Angeles as a mass protest rages in front of police. Officers were attempting to clear a homeless encampment from a park. New video shows the heavy police presence backing off as protesters advance toward them. LAPD Chief Michael Moore tweeted, quote, "Those already inside the park in tents will be allowed to remain overnight." Nike and H&M are among several brands facing furious backlash in China. Both companies have expressed fears of alleged forced labor to produce cotton in the country's western region. The previous statements are causing a firestorm on Chinese social media as several celebrities have cut ties with the companies. Nike and H&M have said they do not source cotton from the area. Let's go to extreme weather now. Strong storms are expected tonight into tomorrow in the Deep South. Some areas will experience numerous thunderstorms, but the biggest threats could come from potential tornadoes, damaging wind gusts and hail. A flash flood watch will be in effect in several counties. Another round of showers and thunderstorms are also in the weekend forecast. And the Oscars creating quite the Hollywood headache. The ceremony's no Zoom policy is reportedly facing backlash from nominees who live outside the U.S. They're raising major concerns about pandemic restrictions like travel and quarantine protocol after the awards show barred people from participating remotely. Nominees are encouraged to attend the awards show on April 25th. That is a look at your headlines. I'll send it back to you.
Here's the thing about the Oscars, Jillian and Will and Rachel, is people would watch it to see if the movie they went out to the theater in the last year actually got the award. Who went to a theater this year?
Yeah, can you think of anything that's lost more cultural relevance than the Oscars over the past couple of years? I don't even know what movies would be nominated.
Yeah, I am not a movie. I don't even pretend to be a movie person. But weren't a lot of movies were released differently, like on different platforms,
right?
Correct.
So Amazon Prime, yep.
The Netflix award show might go over better, right?
All right. No Zoom,
we'll
though.
See.
We will. Thank you, Jillian. All right, about 7:14 here in New York City. Meanwhile, in the aftermath of the Colorado shooting, the Biden-Harris White House is calling for gun controls, even considering executive action, which would be temporary. Our next guest warns they're undervaluing the Second Amendment. Hear from them next.
10 people inside a Colorado grocery store will make his first court appearance today. Jeff Paul is live in Boulder with how the community is honoring those who lost their lives. Jeff?
Yeah, well, the suspect's court appearance today is really a formality and signals that this investigation is moving forward. And while all that happens later this morning, this community is still very much mourning the loss of the 10 people who were shot and killed, one of them being specifically honored yesterday, Officer Eric Talley, who was honored by hundreds of people who lined up to pay tribute to the father of 7. Police officers, firefighters, and just regular everyday people lined the route as a procession moved his body to a funeral home. Later in the evening, more than 500 people showed up to remember all of the victims during a candlelight vigil. It was a very emotional night for the group that gathered as they thought about victims like 25-year-old Ricky Olds, whose uncle is understandably struggling with the loss.
Her life was cut short, unfortunately, by the events the other day. She didn't get to experience marriage. She was 25 years old.
Now, the suspect, 21-year-old Ahmad Alyssa, will be in court later this morning. He basically will get a chance to hear the charges that he is facing and hear his rights. He is facing 10 charges of first-degree murder and 1 charge of attempted murder. Will?
All right, Jeff, thank you for that update this morning. Well, in the wake of the shooting, President Biden and Vice President Harris are calling for more gun control.
I don't need to wait another minute, let alone an hour, to take common sense steps that will save the lives in the future and to urge my colleagues in the House and Senate to act.
The point here is Congress needs to act. And on the House side, they did. There are 2 bills which the president is prepared to sign, and so we need the Senate to act.
Here to react, attorney and gun rights activist Kolian Noir. Kolian, always good to have you. Thanks for being on the program this morning. What do you think? We see the list of items somewhat repetitive in the wake of these tragedies. The Democrats will push for expanded background checks, banning assault rifles, assault weapons, high-capacity, quote-unquote, high-capacity magazines, potentially a gun registry. What do you expect them to target as new laws?
Well, I definitely expect them to go after the universal background checks because for them, that's low-hanging fruit. They've been pushing this notion that 90% of Americans agree with the universal background check without actually telling Americans the distinction between the background check we already have and the universal background checks. But on top of that, I expect them to go after AR-15s and semi-automatic rifles as well, largely because they've been engaging in this fear campaign, presenting the AR-15 as this killing machine, that the only utility and purpose that it has is to kill a bunch of people in mass shootings, as we just saw in Boulder, Colorado, which is absolutely not true.
Right.
So from that perspective, like you said, it's very repetitive, and they do this consistently. And at this point, considering the times that we live in now, I think it's fair to say that everyone honestly should be very cognizant about what's going on, because now we have access to information we didn't have 10, 20, 30 years ago. And so the information now is out there. And so I implore the people who are watching this, understand, like, the consequences, there are consequences that come with voting for these people. And we need to hold them accountable to the things that they do and the things that they say.
And Colion, it's a campaign of fear built upon ignorance. It relies on people not understanding the functional differences and the lack of differences in a weapon like the AR compared to other semi-automatic weapons. As long as people are ignorant of these differences or the lack of differences, they'll be able to push that campaign of fear. However, on the other side, Colion, 2020 saw record gun purchases and for first-time gun owners, and that only increased in January of 2021. So the point is there are more Americans out there owning guns today than at any point. So how is this a political victory, or how can they push forward a democratic political agenda if more and more people are becoming gun owners?
That's just it. They can't, because if there's one thing that their agenda can't usurp, it's reality. Because I think there are a lot of people out there who believe that we're so advanced that we don't need these tools anymore. And that's not the case. And we learned that readily in 2020 when people realized, oh, man, when it comes down to it, the only person responsible for my safety is me. So I need to go out there and get the best tool possible to defend not only me, but the family and the people that I love. And that's what we realized in 2020. But on the other side of it, as far as the gun control lobby and these politicians who are anti-gun, they think they can continue to just push this agenda because they forget we live in the day and age of the internet, and that they can. Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, Colin, and the answer is they will do it through undemocratic means. They'll do it through executive action or something else that doesn't rely on the voters' accountability. Really quickly, Colin, everyone wants to see these tragedies end. The Democrats' response always is to go after guns. What would be your suggestion on how we can stem the tide of these mass shootings?
Empower the people. At the end of the day, empower the people, because it's only reality. A cop can't be there at the same time or to the degree that you're there whenever a situation like this happens. So we should teach people responsible gun ownership and the ability to carry a firearm with them as often as possible, so that if something like this does happen, we can do something about it immediately and not have to wait for someone else.
And I would suggest, as evidence to back up your point right there, these don't often happen, or they largely happen in gun-free zones. That's where a lot of these types of crimes take place. Colion Nuer, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. It has been 1 year to the day since Governor Cuomo ordered New York nursing homes to take in COVID-19 patients. In that time, thousands have died from the virus inside the homes, including
Cuomo's directive that said nursing homes could not deny admission to somebody with COVID. Oh, man. Since then, more than 15,000 people have died from COVID who were housed in nursing homes. Here's a look back at the year.
Janice Dean losing her father-in-law and her mother-in-law to COVID-19 while in care facilities.
Older people, vulnerable people are going to die from this virus.
6,000 COVID recovering patients were put into nursing homes because of the governor's mandate.
Do you take responsibility for that order and the role it may have played in those deaths?
The Republicans definitely are playing politics.
My family story is not based on politics, as some might have you believe.
For all the pain and all the tears, our way worked.
My family needs an apology. I don't want to, and I did not want to be a COVID orphan. But I am, and there's thousands of us.
To see him joking that Cuomo Comedy Hour over on CNN.
Was it this? That is
or
just
was
not
it
right.
this? Tell people the truth.
Him writing a book in the middle of a pandemic and then getting an Emmy for his leadership.
Congratulations, Andrew, on your much-deserved Founders Award.
The Attorney General, a Democrat, Letitia James, issued a report.
Her findings show New York undercounted nursing home COVID-19 deaths by as much as 50%.
Who cares? 33, 28, died in a hospital, died in a nursing home. They died.
The last words my mom said to me was, "Donna, I'm scared."
And there absolutely has to be a full investigation.
Why not start the impeachment process?
The FBI investigates whether his top aides gave false data on the state's nursing homes to the Department of Justice.
This is about decent human beings coming together, taking on the most powerful politician in the state of New York. Together, we will get to the truth.
Janice Dean joins us right now with her reaction to an incredibly fast and difficult year. Janice, good morning to you. You know, the Department of Justice is now looking into the governor's plan to send people back into nursing homes because, among other things, we know now from his secretary to the governor, Melissa DeRosa, on a Zoom call with Democrats, she admitted we doctored the numbers so that the Trump administration and the DOJ wouldn't come after us. Well, now the DOJ is looking into what they did to make sure it wasn't against the law.
Right, and we have a federal investigation and an FBI investigation here in New York, and all I want is those investigations to be on the side of justice, to get the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth from the governor and his administration. It's all I've wanted from the very beginning is just answers to three questions. The March 25th order, what are the origins? Where did it come from? Why did he put COVID-positive patients into nursing homes and did not use the federal facilities that were provided, the Comfort Chip, the Javits Center? And why did he cover it up for months?
Those are three great questions. And we would like, you know what? We would like to have the transparency and we would like to know the answers. And you have been asking for transparency and answers for months because of your awful story. You know, you did not set out to become an advocate for this issue, but given the fact that both of your in-laws died, you are an accidental activist. And now you are, you know, a lot of people feel that you are their voice because they lost somebody and nobody's fighting City Hall, or in this case, the state mansion.
Right, and I will continue to try to be a voice for them. You're right. I mean, I'm the meteorologist for Fox and Friends. That's been my job for many years now with Fox News. I've never been a political person. No one knows who I voted for. But I felt it was important because I wasn't seeing the coverage on television of this order that is now a year old to put COVID-positive patients into nursing homes. I thought those who have no voice.
Yeah. And, you know, Janice, the thing about it is a lot of the things you've been asking, we have discovered were true. So, you know, you're helping us all get to the bottom of this.
I hope so, Steve. You know, my husband said to me last night, "How long do you plan to do this for?" And I told him, I don't know. I will continue to try to do it on behalf of those that don't have a voice, and I feel that I am on the side of the angels, and they do give me strength every day to try to get those answers. But I don't know how much I can continue to do this because it is really tough. Yeah. It's tough on me, and it's tough on my family.
I know, and I know there are people who would love to have you, and you're absolutely right. We don't know about your politics, but there are people who feel that you would be great in public service because you have done a public service in advancing the quest for justice in this particular case. Speaking of justice, on this one-year anniversary, it is ironic that it has been revealed that apparently Governor Cuomo pulled strings to give his family preferential treatment, including Chris Cuomo, his famous brother on TV, his sister, his mother. They all got COVID tests when none of us could get them, but they all jumped the line and got preferential treatment. What sort of preferential treatment did your family get?
None. and they weren't allowed to test them in the nursing homes when they were putting COVID-positive patients back into nursing homes that basically spread the virus like wildfire. So I think it's just disgusting. And I think the impeachment process should continue. I think Albany lawmakers need to do that for our families. Get it done. They're stalling. They're stonewalling right now. He doesn't deserve to be our leader anymore.
Well, you know, it's interesting you should say that in the stonewalling, because there are all of these investigations up in Albany, the state capitol here. There's an impeachment inquiry, and they're trying to get things started. And this is by Democrats. And even though, you know, he is being surrounded by critics and people saying, look, you blew it on this and you didn't do that right. And then there are other issues as well. He's steadfast. He has said he's not budging.
I'm not surprised. It's part of his personality. He's a bully. He likes to threaten people. I'm not surprised that there's a Me Too movement against him, because he really does think he's the most powerful guy in the room. But I think justice needs to be done here, and we have voices on both sides of the aisle. And what if he was a Republican? Do you think we would still be looking into this governor? And wouldn't there probably be an impeachment already? Just think about that for a moment. What if this was a Ron DeSantis giving preferential treatment to his family, getting COVID tests for his brother on television? Just think about that. And what if I was a meteorologist on a different network? What kind of coverage would I be getting? What kind of treatment would I get from the press? Just think about that for a moment.
You're absolutely right when you think about that. Janice, you know, you have been an advocate for these 15,000 people who died through this scandal at the nursing homes. And while we've heard the stories of your two in-laws, there are about 15,000 others. We don't know their story, and that is a tragedy.
It is, and we have to remember each and every one of them. Every victim deserves their right to tell their story. Unfortunately, over 15,000 of them are not here to tell theirs.
But you are giving them voice, and you are trying to get to the bottom of it, and you're just looking for justice. That's what you have said from the get-go, and you have done a good job on that.
That's all.
Janice, thank you very much for joining us on this one-year anniversary.
Thank you, my friend.
You bet. Thank you. Mickey and Dee would have celebrated their 60th anniversary in February. We'll be right back.
Buckeye State, where Pete Hegseth is talking to diners live over breakfast with friends at Camp Washington Chili in Cincinnati, Ohio. Pete, I'm assuming you've already had breakfast.
3 times.
Of course, already had breakfast multiple times. This is the 7-way, Steve. This is the one with the eggs on top and the jalapenos.
Beautiful.
It's off the menu.
Oh, jalapenos.
It's amazing. We got it. It's beautiful.
That looks great.
Box that up for
Might have
me.
to be in your next recipe for sure, next book. And I will say, since I know now why Bill Hemmer is such a nice guy. It seems that everyone from Cincinnati is a nice guy. I think that's what we're finding out this morning for sure. There we go. Joan just chimed in. Loves Bill Hemmer. She's from Cincinnati, and we're sharing our Mountain Dews and having a great conversation this morning. Joan, you're retired and watching what's happening in our politics today. What's your reaction? Joe Biden's having his first press conference. What do you hope to hear? What do you expect the questions will be? Expectations?
What I hope to hear, I probably won't hear. I expect that he will have his script ready, and he'll read it. And I would expect that a question may come from the press related to the border. My expectation, I hope I'm wrong, is that he will say, my vice president, pause, is here, and I defer to her to answer any questions about the border. And then she will say what she chooses to say. But I don't believe that he will, I don't think he could ad-lib that answer.
When you watch the first 2 months of the Biden presidency, what's your take and sort of where we are as a country as well?
As a country, I'm very concerned. It scares the liver out of me. I look back, again, I'm retired, so you can estimate my age. Went to Catholic school every day for 12 years. We prayed every morning. And one of the prayers was always the communism not come to our country. We had, and what concerns me is now at this age, some of those same people that prayed with me for 12 years voted for communism to come to our country. It stuns me. It stuns me that there isn't more awareness of looking beyond perhaps the $1,000 payment or whatever it is.
Sure.
Or beyond the you get this and this. There's an end to that road.
Yeah.
And that end is scary to me.
So well said. Joan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We're going to pop over to Sam over here. Sam, good morning. How you doing?
Hey, no hard feelings, Will.
He's the one that made the crack about Texas. No hard feelings. He really does love you, Will. Father of 4 daughters.
4 daughters, yep.
As well, small business owner.
Yep.
What do you expect to hear from the president today at the press conference?
Well, a bunch of softball questions. I mean, unless Peter Ducey's asking him, right? But I would just really like to hear his thoughts on the COVID relief bill. Less than 10% of the money went towards COVID relief, and I've got 4 daughters. Who's going to pay for that? $5,700, and everybody gets a $1,400 check. That concerns me,
Absolutely.
That concerns me. What's the future my daughters going to have?
Yeah, I mean, 2 months into the Biden presidency, when you look at that, what weighs most heavily on your mind?
That we're spending a lot of money, that our borders aren't secure, and that our world leaders don't respect us.
Wow, it's pretty well said right there.
And I need Steve Ducey to pay for this because I don't have any money with 4 kids in this COVID relief bill.
Steve, you're on the hook. You heard
only
it.
$10
for the bill.
He picked the right
$10
man
for
because
Sam
I'm not
here in
buying anything for
Cincinnati.
Sam this morning, and Steve's the guy picking up the tab.
It's going to have to be Steve.
Pete, I will give you the money when I see you next time. Just pay for that guy's breakfast, and you got to pay for. You did pay for Anthony, who turned 60 today, right?
I didn't, but I will. Here's a $20 bill from
I see
Steve
100.
Ducey.
Wait a minute.
That's from
Okay,
Steve
I'll give you the
Ducey.
money.
All right, I'll pay him back when I get to New York.
It's a $10
all right?
tip here. It's a $10 tip.
$10 tip from Steve. You're on the hook.
Hey, Pete, we've all decided that we're going to steal that new phrase from the woman you just interviewed that scared the liver out of me. We kind of like that.
Yeah.
Scared the liver out of me. I was scared what she might say. She went with liver. And I felt a lot better about that.
Well, it is fantastic. Somebody's calling in the background. They just want to know, if I mention Fox News, do I get $20 from Pete Hegseth? So
Right, everybody's flooding the doors
answer
right
is
now.
yes right now. It's
All
true.
right.
It's true.
All right, thanks, Pete.
guys.
We'll see you
So
later.
good seeing you, Pete.
Thank you,
Check
sir.
in a little bit later with Pete. They're live from Cincinnati. Let's go to Jillian now with some more headlines.
That's right. Good morning. Let's begin with this story. A Jeffrey Epstein accuser is slamming Vice President Harris over her decision to appear with former President Bill Clinton at an event on women empowerment. Virginia Giuffre tweeting in part, quote, "Wow, she's asking Clinton how to empower women? Wrong person. What she should be asking him is what Clinton was doing on Epstein Island and private jets 27 times. Clinton has previously denied flying on the convicted sex offender's private plane. Tenants of a luxury New York City apartment are sued for throwing massive parties. Look at this. The building's landlord filed a lawsuit saying the tenants turned their apartment into a maskless nightclub, charging people $100 to get in. The sheriff's department busted 2 parties, including one just last week, where they found 120 people drinking and smoking weed without face masks. The landlord wants $10,000 for damages and an end to the parties. A Minnesota man faces up to a decade behind bars for allegedly stealing more than $1,200 worth of Girl Scout cookies from a loading dock. Officers stopped 43-year-old Joel Whitaker when they noticed more than 20 cases of Girl Scout cookies in his car. He's charged with burglary and theft. And they're off. The Tokyo Olympics torch relay is underway. Around 10,000 runners are expected to take part in the 121-day journey across Japan. It will end at the July 23rd opening ceremony. The first runner was a key player on the country's World Cup winning women's soccer team in 2011. Japan postponed the games last year due to the pandemic. Let's look at your headlines. Send it back to you.
Here's what America wants to know, Jillian. We want to know the Girl Scout cookie thief. Did he primarily steal Samoas, Tagalogs, Thin Mints? What was his preference?
I would love to know. I don't know.
I know.
It's almost as bad as stealing COVID tests from grandmas, which Cuomo did. So,
Right.
yeah, stealing
All
from
right.
Girl Scouts.
See if you can find out what's his favorite Girl Scout cookie. You can email us at friends at Fox and Friends. You got to help me.
Friends at FoxNews.com.
I haven't committed that to memory just yet. All right, I hear you. You're
Got you
yelling
covered.
at me in my ear. I will promise I will remember the email address from now on.
It's right